tunnel.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Middle of the Pack Racing League Radical Eurotrip Championship for 2023, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks what is another round of intense racing action in the Northern Cup. And well, it's round 3 of 12, and we are here in the United Kingdom at the one and only Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. The start of a British doubleheader, and it all begins in the county of Kent for our final sprint race round of the Northern Cup. And what a brilliant circuit, and what a brilliant day today as well, with brilliant sunshine, very little cloud around, and a circuit that is absolutely teeming with radicals roaring their way around with V8 engines aplenty. This is a circuit that is absolutely perfect for radical class racing, in the fact that with only 9 corners and a very short length in 2.43 miles, it is one of the shortest circuits on our calendar. However, whilst the circuit may be short, it makes up for it by the fact it has 9 corners which all have a household name to them, whether it be Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1, the major descent beyond the long right hand apex, the rise up the hill towards Druids at turn number 2, or later on the lap in the run on for what is Hawthorne's Corner at turn at number 5, and the charge on around Westfield Bend and all the way up to what is Stirling's at turn number 8. It is a circuit which continues to brim with corners while drivers will push to the absolute limit. And there's one thing we haven't even talked about yet, and that is the fact the road surface around here is incredibly narrow over the entirety of the lap, making overtaking tremendously difficult, and it means that track position is absolutely key if you want to come out on top here, or you've got to be incredibly brave under braking into a corner sequence. But as our drivers get ready to go racing, let's take you through today's schedule. Times in British summertime, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 12 minutes time, we're going into the qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration at 8:15 this evening, and all the drivers will be out of the circuit in their respective sessions in order to try and deliver the ultimate qualifying time. After which we'll then go straight to the grid for our race of the day. Now we are 30-minute sprint race due to commence at 8:30. This broadcast is being brought to you live from circuit side. However, we should point out this is a post-round broadcast. Now, what does that mean in reality? It means simply that the racing occurred early this week. In fact, it occurred yesterday as of what was Wednesday the 20th of September. We're bringing it to you as if it were live this Thursday the 21st of September, and that entails, well, that in itself does mean that with regards to all the racing, we don't know here in the commentary booth who came out on top in the race or in the qualifying session or indeed in the build-up practice session, which is currently ongoing. We've done our best to avoid any potential spoilers, and that's why it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. And when the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action over the entirety of the season. And this broadcast is being brought to you by 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly on YouTube at TX141 at TX, alternatively Paul Walsh on YouTube, and on Twitch it's being brought to you by twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you on both platforms. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi. We're going on to our calendar then for this season. And as we can see, 2 rounds down, and we start off with a Belgian doubleheader in the Northern Cup, with round number 1 getting underway on the 6th of September at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. There was battles aplenty as all the drivers looked to settle into the rhythm of the tenaciously tricky circuit in Belgium, and well, we got to see brilliant batting up and down the field, but the one man who stood tall of them all was James Logsdon in the Pro class, who brought home the opening win of the season. And last time out at Circuit Zolder in round number 2, everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit, well, it was all about the battles on the brakes aplenty, and we got to see in the Prime class Ilya Speaker take the championship lead, and in the AM class Nicholas Feller with his consistency started to pull away. But today is round number 3, and after today, next week we'll make it away to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for our final round in the Northern Cup, and there we'll conclude our British doubleheader as well with our first feature race of the season on the 27th of September, after which we'll take our first mid-season break. Now set us up for the Central Cup, which will be rounds 5 through to 8, and that commences at the Red Bull Ring in Austria on the 11th of October, with all drivers there taking on the long straights and every braking zones of the Austrian circuit. And then round number 6 we make our way to neighbouring Hungary for the Hungaroring circuit, a very tricky circuit given the fact it's a very slippery circuit, and with these radical cars not that stable by default and will find themselves constantly oversteering around the very technical circuit on the 18th of October. But in round number 7 we make our way to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, and there the Grand Prix layout of the circuit has been much transformed over its history, We'll play host to our drives on the 25th of October, and there could be quite the variety in terms of who can come out on top. In round number 8, we'll see our drivers make their way to France for the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans, also known in short as Le Mans in reference to a local township. And on the 1st of November, we'll conclude the Central Cup with our second feature race round of the season. And there you'll see our Radicals absolutely charge down the Logsdon straight at maximum top speed. And well, that is going to be an absolutely brilliant race in its own right. Then we'll take our second mid-season break before returning for round number 9 on the 15th of November, and that'll be the commencement of a Spanish triple header, beginning with a sprint at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and then it's followed on by Motorland Aragon a week later in round number 10, and then we'll make our way to the Circuito de Jerez in round number 11, the finale of our Spanish triple header, and our final sprint race round of the season on the 29th of November, and a week later as we go into December, on the 6th of December, we'll bring the curtain down on all of the racing with the Imola Grand Prix circuit, playing host to our drives for the final feature race round of the season, and they'll be crowning both our Southern Cup champions and also our overall champions in the drivers and teams classes. Well, speaking of championships, let's give you a reminder of how the standings stand after 2 rounds of racing, and we start off with the Pro Drivers' Championship, and here we can see that James Logsdon now leads on 96 points, the 87 of Peter Lowe. An advantage of 9 points, but an advantage like that is a critical one, and last time out at Circuit Zolder, we got to see Peter Lowe essentially in a position whereby he was able to hold James Logsdon at bay for a sizable period of time, even though at one point it was Peter Lowe who was leading the way, but Logsdon in the end having to settle for what was a 3rd place finish, and meanwhile Francois Schink coming away with the big victory. Meanwhile behind him in P3, Jordan Butler, well, he's on 82 points, 5 off of the top 2, but a point ahead of Jason Landry, who found himself languishing at the bottom end of the top 5 last time out, and then it's 3 points to John Crew in P5, with Milan Harris on equal points, but behind based on result countback, and then Francois Schink catapulted his way up to P7 on 36 points, 4 clear of Jake Gertson, and Aaron Lahr and Mika Hendricks completed your top 10. Meanwhile, Logan McKenzie best their SP11 ahead of Tanner Dibble, and that's how your Pro Championship stands. We then come onto the Prime class, and here we can see Ilya Speaker is the name at the top, starting to build a lead for Rockefeller Racing ahead of sister team driver Adam J. Ballard, and well, the 2 drivers here, 1-2 for Rockefeller Racing in the championship, and both eager to try and make a statement. They're number 1 within the class, and Mike J. Young, the next driver there in P3. 61 points, 12 points behind, and can anybody stop Speaker and Ballard from breaking away? That's the big question. Jay DeVries in P4 on 55 points. He's 2 clear of Charles Hulsey, with John Lauzon there on 46 points, and a great result, picking up the first win of his season. Indeed, the first win we've seen from John Lauzon in a long time, finally subverting that bad luck that seems to have plagued him for the best part of the majority of 2023, and will long may that continue for him, with Sammy Hendricks now on 22 points, P7, ahead of Samuel Cran, Lee Porter, and Jermaine Warren. And then outside the top 10 at best their SP11, it's Avon Dorsey with Dominique Ford at P12. We then come on to the AM class, last but not least in Turbo Drivers' Championships, and here we can see Nicholas Feller on 59 points, 4 clear of Kevin Manning, and well, it has been the battle back and forth of Feller and Manning in terms of this championship so far, albeit they're only the best part, but it's 2 points clear of J.R. Davies in P3, and then Dustin Dosvez in P4 there on 52 points, and it's incredibly close at the top right now, and Feller does have a small advantage, but you would imagine that advantage could very quickly dwindle into dust. Meanwhile, in P5, it's Dan Victrick on 50 points, and therefore the top 5 separated by only 9 points, and there could be a swing today, with Jesse Jameson Jr. at P6 ahead of Mark Senegal by a single point. And then Glenn Bratton, Nick Bader, and David Turn complete your top 10. P11, it's Stefan Chalafou on 33 points, only outside the top 10 based on result countback versus Turn. And there's James Kingsbury at P12 on 30 points, 1 clear of Samuel Bernardi, with Tim Chong and Bill DaCosta completing your top 15. And then to round off your AM top 20, it's Braden Melling, Ian Hannaberry, Keith Wilfred, Nick Yakubov, and Roger Ganesh on 13 points. But lastly, coming on to the Teams Championship, and here we can see Rockefeller Racing Gold breaking away at the front of the standings now on 170 points. They're the best part of what is their 33 points clear of Bear Pope Racing. However, given the 33-point gap, that is a gap that can be very quickly closed down, and Rockefeller Racing Gold will need to maintain the consistency today if they want to continue to extract that advantage, as otherwise they could very quickly fall back into the clutches of Bear Pope, and if they do, we can see that the gap between Bear Pope and P5 Bear Pope 0, it's only 12 points, and in between you have Reverse Grid Racing and Rockefeller Racing Green. Sunday GT Turtles, 2 points outside the top 5 on 123 points. 1 clear ATC Silver, who've had a huge boost to their points as of the previous round, with John Lauzon's win in particular at Circuit Zolder. And then DNA Motorsports, ATC Gold, and Photan Clan complete a top 10, with Photan Clan there only in P10 based on result countback versus ATC Gold, I should say. And then Flavor Station Racing a further 16 points behind on equal points with Rockefeller Racing Red, but best the rest currently based on result countback. Slipstream Sloths, meanwhile, in P13 ahead ahead of Middle of the Pack Racing, who complete the standings in P14 on 27 points, and that's other standing stand, ladies and gentlemen. But now we come onto our circuit for today. And, well, it's a circuit that arguably needs no introduction in the United Kingdom. It's a staple of British motorsport, but let's give it an introduction all the same. It's the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, located near the village of West Kingsdown in the county of Kent in England, the United Kingdom. As we can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com. Thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. On paper, this circuit looks very simple, with the fact it's only got 9 corners and the majority of them being sweeping corners with late apexes. However, what a two-dimensional circuit map does not show is a significant number of elevation changes over the entirety of the lap. And as our drivers make the way around, keep your eyes out for turn 1, also turn 3, 4, and the run through turn 6 into 8. And that's where the key elevation changes are, and that's where drivers could find themselves coming unstuck. For as our drivers make their way across the start-finish line and in towards Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1, they'll go through the sweeping downhill right-hander, where they'll find the car pushed out wide there with the natural off-camber rotation of the corner, the entire drivers invoking understeer in the front of their cars. And as they make the way downhill, they'll charge uphill and towards turn number 2 at Druid's Hairpin, hard on the brakes there for the slice corner on the circuit, and perhaps where the key overtaking opportunities, they come through the right-hander and downhill into Hill Bend at turn number 3. Coming down into the braking zone there and into the left-hander for the late apex, and as they make the way out, they'll make the way down the Cooper Straight up towards turn number 4 and into the braking zone there for the Surtees corner, and the corner that gets a lot of expletives said about it because it is a corner that has an incredibly late apex, and you'll get to see that when we go into qualifying. It's a corner where you do not see the apex curve until you've come off the brakes and you've turned the nose in. And as our drivers make the way out of turn number 4, it'll be the charge down towards Hawthorns via Pilgrim's Drop on the long straight, the longest stretch of road on this circuit, before they make the way into the right-hander of Hawthorns at turn number 5, sweeping on through, and then in towards turn 6 and 7 they'll go in the run through Westfield Bend, all the way down through Dingledale in towards turn number 7, and they're on the rise to the right-hander. They'll need to keep it on the track. It's a very hard corner to get right when they make the way into Stirling's at turn number 8, a heavy braking zone which proceeds the back straight down towards turn number 9. The final corner, as they come up through the right-hander, they'll complete the lap there. 9 that'll need to try and get it absolutely right coming out of clearways before they make the way into the start-finish straight. Only to do it all over again. And to give you a reminder of the rules before we go racing, setup-wise, drivers shall run a fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League, and car fuel loads have been restricted to 46%. That means our drivers can make it to the end of the race unscathed of fuel capacity in the sprints, but in the feature races they will need to take a pit stop. Qualifying-wise today, an open qualifying format shall be used, lasting 15 minutes and split into 2 equal halves. The AM class will take the first 7.5 minutes, and in the Prime and Pro classes shall jointly be out on circuit for the second half of the qualifying session. In terms of the sprint race, the race shall start by a double file and rolling start, with the formation being held up to the green flag. Each driver has 1 fast repair available. Alternatively, if they do come into the pits, it may be because they picked up a drive-through penalty, and that's where they've accumulated 18 or more instant points. Now, should there be a major incident at the race start, and we have seen major incidents at the start of both rounds thus far in terms of rounds 1 and 2, and will we go for the triple today? That's the question. Where if there is a major incident at the race start, a safety car may be deployed at the discretion of the live steward. Otherwise, the safety car shall not be deployed during the race, and that keeps the racing going for the full 30 minutes. Well, that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We are only moments away from going racing now, ladies and gentlemen, albeit going into that qualifying session, we should say. And well, here is the fast charging Pro-Am driver currently of Ilias Beak of a Rockefeller Racing Gold, albeit livery not quite loading on the car currently. I believe that might be a bit of a technical hitch, and we'll try to get that resolved going into the qualifying session. But right now, currently the fastest of the Pro-Am drivers out there in this final practice warm-up session, and will only 1.5 tenths off of the fastest pro driver in the form of Rockefeller Racing Gold's John Groom. And with the American here absolutely on point with the only 17 in this qualifying session. Most of our drivers targeting 18s or 19s depending on their class, as Groom parks the car up. And meanwhile, we've got Keith Wilfred, the fastest AM out there. He's currently in the pit lane as we look from one John to another, and this is AlphaTauri change still with John Lauzon, who today will be buoyant after his performance last time out, and he'll be hoping that he can go all in once again and get it absolutely nailed here today and make it 2 wins on the bounce. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to transition to qualifying, so we're going to step away for approximately 30 seconds. We'll be right back to transition to that qualifying session, and then we'll get 15 minutes of qualifying underway. We'll see you very shortly. Yes, away we go, ladies and gentlemen, at 4 qualifying, 15 minutes, 2 7.5-minute sessions, and it all begins with the AMs making their way out of the circuit, and was the Flavour Station Racing 272 machine of Dustin Dosvez makes his way out of the pit lane. We should point out that we've been mispronouncing his surname these last couple of rounds, and the fact we've been pronouncing it as if it's French, but in fact I do believe the surname is Spanish. I've been informed on a good authority, so therefore we are going to correct our pronunciation going forward, and we do apologise for that. But a bit of a slide there coming through Paddock Hill Bend on cold tyres, not what you want straight away at the beginning of this qualifying session, and that's going to put a lot of heat in the tyres immediately, which you could think is a good thing, but it also could risk putting a flat spot on the tyres, and that's the bad side of it. When you suddenly overheat the tyre, you cause it to deform, and in doing so you take a lot of the life away. But as we say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube and Twitch chats respectively, it's great to see so many of you tuning in today, including Avon Dorsey in the YouTube chat, who's super excited to watch a race live finally, and great to see that from you, Avon. We also say hello there to Milan Harris, who says let's go racing, also to Samuel Bernardi, also to Jay Lewis there, who says woot woot indeed. We also say hello there to Ian Bertolucci, who says let's go ATC, cheering on the Alpha Touring Challenge. And in the Twitch chat we do have Salbo_17, who says this looks like a fun race, and definitely this could be perhaps one of the most intense races of the season. And well, we can labour that for every single round of the season, but the reason we're expecting this one to be so intense is in the fact that because this circuit is such a difficult circuit to overtake at, regardless of what class you race in, and therefore it really does encourage nose-to-tail racing from corner to corner, and getting an advantage, being able to make an overtake, comes from putting so much pressure on your rival and getting them to make even the smallest of mistakes, even missing an apex by a couple of millimetres compared to where you would normally do. And that could be enough to create the opportunity that's required, but otherwise you've got to follow drivers so closely. Indeed, this circuit hosting on an annual basis the GT World Challenge, also on top of that British Touring Car, TCR UK. It is a circuit that is much loved, and its ultimate reputation is with regards to racing when it comes to what is touring car style racing. And even at a club level you'll see racing series such as BMW Compacts racing around here that goes all the way up to GT3 class racing, and were previously a host of Formula 1 back in the 80s, but unfortunately Formula 1 no longer coming to Brands Hatch due to FIA safety regulations. Well, there's been a grade 2 FIA circuit versus grade 1 circuits being the required standard for Formula 1, but back in the days where we did get to see quite the scenes, particularly with regards to Mansell-mania in the era of Nigel Mansell. And well, as we do look here to Nick Vader as he makes his way onto his first flying lap, well, as he charges on it up the hill through turn number 5 there, going up through Hawthorns. He's got the toe of a couple of cars in front of him, and will the toe be a big factor in qualifying? So you may be wondering, and we think it could be the difference between pole, alternatively being the runner-up in your class in this qualifying session, and the fact you can gain 2 to 3 tenths over the course of the lap with the toe, but you need to be absolutely precise through the corners by default and not have any impediments, as we do see there a little bit of a moment at forward where it's Bader having to go round the outside, and Nick Yakubov, who went wide coming out of Dingle into Sheen Curve at turn number 7. And in doing so, it's cost them both time, as Bader will know he's now got to go again and try and find a bit more time out there. But the lap times are already coming in from our drivers, setting their first flying laps, and it's David Turn who sets the fastest thus far on a 19.958. And here we see him in the 235 as he makes his way through Druids and down towards Hill Bend at turn number 3, and he comes on down there in to left-hander. Graham Hill Bend, as he's known in full, named after the infamous British driver, and well, the son Damon Hill following his father's footsteps, albeit under a pseudonym for the best part of his open portion of his motorsport career, albeit that's a little bit of a fact that not everybody knows that Damon Hill didn't originally race under his name. I can't remember the name he raced under, but it was to avoid him getting notoriety until he made the name for himself and worked his way up series and then changed his name back to Damon Hill. But as we look to David Turner making his way out of turn number 5, charging his way in towards turn number 6, now coming into Westfield Bend. We're very shortly getting an on-board lap with one of our drivers around here, and I believe we may be getting a lap with Rockefeller Racing at Red Samuel Bernardi as he comes on through, and indeed we jump on board here for a flying lap with the GR86 AM champion. Making his way into turn number 1 and braking at about 75 meters to corner apex at Paddock Hill Bend, turning in and now through the downhill drop in 3rd gear and making his way uphill 4th gear and into the braking zone for Druids. Braking 50 meters to corner apex down to 2nd gear, get a nice light apex and slam that throttle back on immediately, load up the car and squirt the throttle as he brakes his way into Graham Hill Bend, braking at the 50 board, now coming out of the corner, use the runoff curve in there. We're going up towards turn number 4 and the dreaded Surtees bend. He brakes at the 50 meter board, where's the apex? Still waiting for it, and there it is. It takes an eternity to find it. You've got to get back on full throttle as soon as you hit it, as that's a run down Pilgrim's Drop and in towards Hawthorns Bend. Now coming in down, we'll see our drivers reach their highest possible speed here, heading up in excess of 140 miles an hour as he hits the 50 board there and drops down from 6th to 5th to 4th, and as he uses the 2 downshifts there to settle the car. Now going into Westfield Bend, turn number 6, through the right-hander, upshift to 4th, down to 3rd, and now going through Dingledale and up into Sheen Curve at turn number 7, braking for the Blind Summit Apex, down to 4th gear as he makes way to the right side now for Sterling's, braking the 50-metre board, down to 3rd gear, plenty of Apex curve to rotate the car, and now going down the back straight here, up towards Clearways at turn number 9, and looking for his brake marker at the 50-metre board, braking as late as possible, get a nice late Apex, comes out the corner. It's a fast lap from Samuel Bernardi. It's an improvement across the board. What's this going to be when it comes to the ultimate lap times? He crosses the line with a 19.099. Only 2 minutes left in this AM qualifying session, and that is good enough for a provisional pole by 3.5 tenths over Jay Davies. So right now, Samuel Bernardi on an absolute charge and a beautiful lap there when we rode on board, and well, absolutely doing justice to the Branch Hatch circuit. But meanwhile, more lap times coming on as Tim Chong goes P2. And making his way down through turn at number 1 now, and I think he'll be feeling as though he's got a good opportunity of a 19.165, putting him only at 7/100ths of a Bernardi's pole time. And well, car pointing sideways there, not quite sure who that was who got it wrong. We do know somebody's got it very, very wrong. We're getting a bit crowded there, going into Graham Hill, Ben car on the outside, so the two of them almost chopping one another off. But meanwhile, we do have a couple of drivers yet to get a lap on the board, including this man, Lucky Chop, who's still trying to get a lap on the timing sheets. And well, right now we do have the best part of 37 drivers registered for this race today, of which in the AM class we have 17 of them, so our largest class on the grid by a significant margin. But meanwhile, at the top of the stands, Kevin Manning's now gone provisional pole by 0.5 tenth over Bernardi of a 19.047. Who out of the AMs can hit an 18 before this qualifying session is done and dusted? That's going to be the big question, as we see Samuel Bernardi there in the YouTube chat saying more gas, less brake. And that's the thing about this circuit as well, you have to return a full throttle as soon as possible in order to find that lap time. It is literally micrometers worth of throttle input. That's the difference when you try to go for that ultimate lap, but push too hard and the car will let go on that rear end. What these cars being so light, these radical engineering machines. The SR8 powered by that V8 370 horsepower engine, and well, meanwhile James Kingsbury improving to P7 there. 15 seconds left on the clock, so all of our AMs right now, if they're not on their final laps, they will be very shortly. Turn moves up into P7, Kingsbury drops to P8, and well, it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And with that, this qualifying session now transitions to the pros and the prams, as they'll be released from the pit lane very shortly and start to make the way out, and our AM drivers will be required to now finish their final laps and come in to the pits. And Kingsbury, one of the last AM drivers to make a way onto a lap as he comes on around, but as he does so, meanwhile we do look to Dos Viz as he heads on through at turn at number 6 here, and currently P6, looking to gain a bit more time in the 272 as he comes up in towards Sheen Curve at turn number 7, making his way through the right-hander. And as he does, a little bit of trivia for you with regards to this circuit. We'll come to that trivia in fact very shortly. Let's focus on the man at hand right now and see if he can go even faster. He has set personal best in the first 4 subsectors, doesn't quite do it in subsector 5, and going on through the final corner here, where it's a nice run coming out onto Clearways, and as he makes his way to the timeline, brings the car over to the right gradually, not as severe as perhaps we'd like, and it's going to be a 19.129. Well, that puts him only a 10th of a pole, but Jay Davies moves into P3, demoting Viez down to P4 there. And meanwhile, we've also got Kingsbury heading across the line. Can he find a bit more time? No, he cannot. We also do have Glenn Bratton out there, making his way into the final corner right now. Through the right-hander he goes, and as he comes on through, what's it going to be from Bratton? He's currently P15. The Sunday GT Turtles driver has got a bit more time out there, we reckon. Will he move up into the top 10? It's P13. It's a 20.765, so slight improvement there, but perhaps not as much as he would like. Lucky Chop heading to line as well. He has got the turbo car in front of him. This could help Chop out, and he moves up to P14 ahead of Yakubov, who drops to P15. Oh, goodness me, and a shunt there between one of the Pro-Ams and what is Chop, and I think that might be a bit of a misinterpretation. I think Chop trying to back off as the Pro-Ams making their way onto their first flying laps, and all the two of them there having a bit of miscommunication. But meanwhile, we're now into the second half of this qualifying session, and well, we're quite a way into it already, in the fact we've only got 6 minutes left to go, plus overtime for the final laps. But point being, right now, everybody will have to be on the ball immediately as they make the way on around here. And when we look to Francois Schink, the pro driver, absolutely on top form at the last time out at what was Circuit Zolder, and today trying to go even further for Alpha Touring Challenge. Silver as he makes his way up towards turn at number 5. Into the braking zone he goes, and we'll throw in the car into the corner there. And you've got to keep the throttle in on these cars, of course, because if you take the throttle off, the rear starts to lift up. And indeed, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, the whole name of the game is throwing that rear weight around and not being afraid to keep the throttle pedal down. It sounds counterintuitive, but it helps keep the rear of the car planted, and that is the difference between a fast lap and a very unstable lap as he makes his way through turn at number 8 into 9. And we'll head in towards the final quarter now. What's it going to be from Shink this time around, as Millen Harris currently purple in subsector 3, as we can see at the bottom of our screen there. But we've got those times starting to come in. James Logsdon goes P10 initially, Harris goes P6, it is Speaker P13. Remember, our pros and primes are going to have plenty more laps to go before this is said and done. So right now they're teeing themselves up for a lap. We've got a car off there. I'm not quite sure who that is. Oh, goodness me, get it very wrong. That was Jermaine Warren, I believe, getting it wrong, coming on through. In fact, he makes his way back to the pit lane. But meanwhile, look to Jake Gertson as he heads into turn number 1 once again. And well, his first lap, not quite representative, I think, just a warm-up lap there, just gradually getting himself up to pace, rather than trying to go in and then going a bit too far into Druids, and the car completely going around. He gets the car off the road immediately, but that is going to be painful. That's going to cost him a lot of time, and he will have some breathing room very shortly, as we've also had it go very wrong for Charles Halsey, who has towed back to the pits after losing it at Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1. But as our drivers here getting themselves all set and reset for those who've had spins, well, meanwhile we look to DNA Motorsports' Jordan Butler. We're going through turn number 4 and down at the run towards Pilgrim Shop he goes. He's going in the tow there, the Rockefeller Racing green car just in front of him, and we believe that may be the car of Avon Dorsey just in front as they make their way through the camera shot, coming on through turn number 5 right now. And this could be ideal for Butler in the fact he's got a tow to work with, plus also he's got a bit of breathing room to the car in front, and those two go hand in hand in the fact you get a distant pull on the straight, and that'll give you 1 to 2 miles an hour more into the next corner. But then because you've got quite a bit of a gap, you can start to get closer and closer, but you're not at risk of getting too close, as we have a new overall pole lap now from Ilya Speaker. It's an 18.902. It's 400 faster than James Logsdon, so it's the prime driver ahead of the pro right now, and Kevin Manning still standing at P3. That goes to show you how strong the AM pole lap was from Manning as they make the way on around. Well, could we see an improvement here from Butler? Could this be a sizable one to move him up? He moves up to P18. They're still waiting at 4 more. Jason Landry comes on through, and well, he's gone purple in subsectors 2 and 3. This is going to be a huge spring up the order if the lap's valid. In fact, no, towards the end of the lap, it was an absolute disaster of a lap. It would seem 4 seconds down on the pole lap, and therefore not able to improve. I think he might have had to abort for a reason or another, but as he makes his way on around here, meanwhile we look to Charles Horsey, who's really been struggling in this qualifying session thus far. No time on the board. The same for Jermaine Warren. Roger Ganesh, the only Amdro not to get a lap time on the board. And as Horsey heads across the line, he'll now go on to his first valid flying lap, and that'll be his target. As you can see, the car there's serpentining under braking into Paddock Hill Bend. It's a bump in the road as you go between the 150 metre marks, and that bump in the road really unsettles the car under braking, and that's what's catching a good number of our drivers out. So therefore, this Brands Hatch circuit has all of its little hidden elements, and as he makes his way through turn number 3 and up towards 4, meanwhile James Logsdon improving to pole position, but Ilya Speaker immediately responding by 4 attempts. Speaker on pole an 18.460. Well, not quite sure what the prime drivers had for breakfast this morning, but I can tell you one thing, he's absolutely flying. And meanwhile, Francois Shink moves to P2 ahead of Logsdon now. Peter Lowe just behind, and Logan McKinsey P5. So it's hotting up at the very top of the standings, albeit can anybody beat Speaker? That's the question. As John Butler moves to what is their P4. John Kroom now moves in 1/10 almost of Speaker on an 18.598. So therefore, Rockefeller Racing definitely delivering here in the late stages qualifying session. 1.5 minutes left to go. And we'll quick bit of trivia for you, ladies and gentlemen. This Brands Hatch circuit in the United Kingdom, one of a very limited number of circuits in the world, let alone in the United Kingdom, where you can walk around the circuit and pretty much be at trackside for every corner bar one, and that's at Stirling's at turn number 8. But otherwise with this circuit, you can effectively be stood by the trackside behind the barriers and the fence post for about 95% of the circuit, and it does mean as a spectator you really get your money's worth as the drivers charge away on around here. And as he makes his way through Hawthorne's Kroom right now, going in towards turn number 6 here, and I think doing this all under his own volition, not really gaining too much of a draft there off of the car in front of him. 1 minute on the clock. James Logsdon moves back up to P3 on 18.671. Speaker improves the pole time to a 18.204. Goodness me, well, I can tell you one thing, this man right now is absolutely ripping it up on circuit, albeit he's only got a very white car. His livery not loading correctly, it would seem, and that's very unfortunate today. As he comes on down in towards turn number 3, Speaker absolutely charging on through and ascending, it would seem, as Milan Harris improves to P2. John Crew improves to P2 now at 18.420. And well, looking further down the order, we have got a couple of drivers still struggling. Jermaine Warren really off the pace at the moment as he makes his way on down towards turn number 9, heading in towards the braking zone here for clearways, and he comes up through the right-hander. Can he find that time that he does seem to be missing? Well, it is going to be right at the death of the session here. The checker flag will come out. He's only going to get this lap on the board. It's P26 for Warren, a 19.797. He won't be too pleased with that. Charles Halsey comes around. He's currently P31. Can he improve? Well, as he comes to the time line, it's going to be P24, then a 19.563. And now we do have next up, it will be, I believe, James Logsdon coming through to the end of his current lap as he makes his way through turn number 9. They're absolutely attacking the final corner. He's gone purple in subsector 5, but will he be able to find that imprint? Stays right over to the wall there, the short on the run. He thinks he's improving, but then Logsdon does not improve. Meanwhile, Francois Shin comes to line. Can he find a way to go further? He goes P2, only 9 thousandths of a Speaker's pole time, and an 18.213. Peter Lowe makes his way back up to P3 off camera. Eamon Dorsey up to P7, so Shink gets close, but not close enough. And then we can see that Mika Hendricks moves up to P5. Can anybody else find Superprint? John Kroom heads towards the line here, bringing along with him a driver in the form of Jason Landry. Landry does not improve. Kroom does not improve either. So they stand, in fact, Landry does improve there. He was a bit further behind, in fact. We mistook him for another driver, and it was an 18.410 there that puts Landry P3. And then our last driver heading to line is Sammy Hendricks, as we do see him here making his way across the line, and that's a 19.613. It's not an imprint, and Hendricks will be started at P23, but that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And when all is said and done, it is Ilya Spico who takes overall and prime pole. So it's a prime pole sitter today ahead of the pro pole sitter of Francois Schenk. And then we do have P13, your AM pole sitter of Kevin Manning, and he puts himself on pole once again. And will Manning delivering here today in the qualifying session. But of course, we've got plenty of racing to come, and well, the big question is, will our pole sitters be the ones leading after turn number 1, or will they find themselves relegated into battles further down the order? A rolling start will assist them in defending into turn number 1 for the simple reason the odd numbers on the grid start on the inside into the opening corner, and it's a short run to the opening corner. But again, it's easy said on paper, and the theory all goes with it. But is that the way it's going to work out in practice? We will have to wait and see. But speaking of which, let's take you through that grid order for today's race. And as we can see, going into round 3 at the middle of the pack Racing League Radical Eurotrip Championship 2023 here today at Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit in the United Kingdom. It is Ilya Spico who takes pole position for Rockefeller Racing Gold, joined on the front row by the pro pole sitter of Francois Schenk for Alpha Touring Change Silver, who qualifies behind the prime pole sitter. And then it's the pro pair Jason Landry for Sunday GT Turtles, and what is Bear Pope Zero's Peter Lowe on the second row, with John Krim for Rockefeller Racing Gold and ATC Gold's Mika Hendricks on row number 3. Row 4 goes to Milan Harris for Rockefeller Racing Gold and Rockefeller Racing Green's Eamon Dorsey, with the top 10 being completed by James Logsdon for Bear Pope and DNA Motorsports Jordan Butler. On row number 6, it's Logan McKenzie for Alpha Touring Change Gold and Adam J. Ballard for Rockefeller Racing Green. And then behind them, you'll see the pairing of what is there, I do believe, at Kevin Manning for Photon Clan, and he's your AM pole sitter P13, and John Lauzon for Alpha Touring Change Silver. On row at number 8, it's the AM pair of Samuel Bernardi for Rockefeller Racing Red and Rockefeller Racing Red's J.R. Davies with him, the two teammates together. And then Dustin Dosviers on P17 there for Flavor Station Racing, joined by Reverse Good Racing's Jake Gertson at P18. The top 20 being completed on row 10 by Tim Chong for Slipstream Slavs and Reverse Good Racing's Mike Young. On row number 11 is Keith Wilfred for Rockefeller Racing Red and Bear Pope Sammy Hendricks, with them being followed up by Jay DeVries for Reverse Good Racing and Rockefeller Racing Green's Charles Halsey. And then behind them on row at number 13 is James Kingsbury for Flavor Station Racing and middle of the pack Racing's Jermaine Warren, with Nick Bader, the privateer P27 ahead of Jesse Jemison Jr. for Photon Clan, and then David Turn for Slipstream Slavs and Lucky Chop, the privateer, complete your top 30. And then outside the top 30 is Dan Victor P31, the privateer ahead of Sunday GT Turtles Mark Senegal P32. Glenn Bratton, the privateer on the 17th row of the grid, joined by Nick Yakubov, Slipstream Slavs. We've had a bit of pandemonium there going in to the start, coming down into turn number 8. Dominique Ford P35 for Photon Clan and Billman DaCosta P36, and then last but not least Roger Ganesh P37. But as the field is segregated, ladies and gentlemen, we will very shortly be going racing, and it'll be Ilya Spica who takes us to the green, albeit with a split field here as they all try to catch up in the AM class further back. They are going to catch up in time. I think somebody stuck in their launch position, and it's the Speaker to take us racing. And he goes early there, and it's lights out and away we go for our third race of the season. The speaker gets a good start, but look at Francois Schick trying to go around the outside immediately. Side by side, they're going to Paddock Hill Bend. It's cold tyres and cold brakes. This is going to make it very difficult under braking, but they both survive as they make their way up the hill into turn number 1. And as all the field charges the way through, speaker holds on, but everybody safely through the opening couple of corners, despite some early drama on the grid start. And as they make their way on down the hill, Lucky Chop making some progress there versus Nick Bader as they come on down the hill into the braking zone for Graham Hill Bend. Through turn number 3 they go. Battles are plenty with Adam Ballard and Nick Bader exchanging places here. Bader on the outside as they make their way into Surtees corner. On the outside being a tricky place to be when you've got a car at your inside, but he's going to try and hold on to it. He does so versus Ballard, who has to back off. But as they make their way now down towards Pilgrim Shop for the first time of asking, we look from them, and in fact we stay with Bader versus what is, I do believe, Ballard. In fact it's Sammy Hendricks he's battling with, and Hendricks on the outside, Bader on the inside, and the Pro driver will lose out versus the Am driver as they make their way through car off the road there. That's Francois Shingo, in fact that's Tim Chong who gets it wrong. Meanwhile, looking at the road, Francois Schick has gone wide, going through what's Dingledale into Sheen. He rejoins car off the road. Oh my good lord! And Schick taking a base of action there, but I think clipping the rear of what was the stricken car of Jason Landry, who got it wrong coming out of Sheen curve. Schick rejoins, but damage to the car, there's no doubt about it. And as he rejoins, that's going to open up the field. And in the AM class right now, Kevin Manning still leads. They come towards the end of lap number 1, albeit it's Jay Davies and Samuel Bernardi immediately behind him as they make their way into lap number 2. So as they charge the way down through Paddock Hill Bend, the battles rage on. Manning goes deep, he goes to the gravel, and that's going to release Davies up into the lead of the AM class. Conor Frisworth, Samuel Bernardi, and the whole field makes their way through as Manning finally rejoins, but has to do so very gradually and gracefully. And as he makes his way through Druids right now, it's going to be frustrating for the Fotan Clan driver for the simple reason he put it on pole in a deserved pole position, but in the end he's lost it all in the space of one corner very early in this race, and now he's got to try and find a way back through. But meanwhile, Jermaine Warren getting it wrong out of Graham Hill Bend, catches the car in time for MOP, and as he brings the car back up to speed, that's going to be 4 places lost as a result. But as he makes his way in towards turn number 4, we look from him back up to James Logsdon here as the Bearpo driver under pressure from Milan Harris, and the Rockefeller Racing Gold driver trying to put the pressure on here versus his rival as they make the way around. Indeed, it's a leading Pro-Am ahead of a whole pack of 7 pros, and then the next driver in P9 is the Emma Davies. So right now we do have a bit of an upset in the field, and about all the pros trying to look to chase down the Pro-Am leader. And keep in mind, of course, that I drive score points based on overall finisher position. So for Speaker right now, he's on for some absolutely huge points when Aidan Dorsey is the next best placed Pro-Am driver down in P12, and that's going to buffet his championship standings, there's no doubt about it. But as they make the way onto lap number 3 now, with still plenty to come, Peter Lowe sets the fastest lap in this race at 19.263, immediately trying to close up to Speaker, and the gap stands at 7 tenths. But Logsdon here holding Harris at bay. Further behind, we do have there side by side in the Paddock Hill Bend, that's Mike Young, who makes his way out the inside for reverse good racing. Nice move from the 125 drive, but look at Avon Dorsey trying to come back under braking into Druids. Looks for it, as you can see, the rear of the car snapping loose slightly from Young there as he tries to turn in, has to correct it in time, and Dorsey also adding fuel to the fire there. Another Rockefeller Racing green pair all over the back of the 125 American as they make the way out of turn number 3. We ride on board and look back from the rear of Young, and well, a lunge up the inside there from Dorsey goes all in. That's the thing with Surtees, if you leave that inside door open, drives can lunge the way in, and it'll disrupt the pair of you. And now Young versus Holsey as Holsey goes around the outside, coming through the King onto Pilgrim's Drop, and as they make the way into Hawthorne's corner, where it's going to be the camber being used here by Holsey to try and go around the outside, but Young in the end digs in and says no you don't, but he goes wide, carrying a bit too much speed. Holsey on the inside into Westfield Bend, and he finally gets the place after these two have battled for the best part of 3 corners. And as they make the way down through Dingledale, well now Young's going to try and go up the inside, too wide into Sheen. It's dangerous at the best of times, but they both survive it, and as they make the way in towards Sterling's Bend, behind them Dustin Dosviez, and make the way out of turn number 8 and up towards 9, and he's on the charge here trying to hunt down some more places overall. He's P3 in the AM class right now, and the Flavour Station Racing driver eager to try and get into this fight, as we're hearing that Nick Bader and Francois Schick have both been towed to the pitch due to damage picked up. And as they make the way up towards turn number 1, well meanwhile John Low's on up the inside of Samuel Bernardi into Paddock Hill Bend. Classic move there from the Canadian driver ATC Silver. You see that plenty of times on the inside of Paddock Hill Bend, it never gets old. But meanwhile what is new is Jay Davies, he's spun, and as he makes way back at speed, Samuel Bernardi to lead to the AM class, and I believe that is contact there between Wes Davis and the car, unless I'm very much mistaken, trying to understand. That would have been, I think that was Jake Gertson he was in contact with. Indeed it was the reverse good racing driver there in contact with Dorsey and Hosey, I should say, and as a result the two drivers there falling down the order, and a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure, but as they make the way onwards towards turn at number 5 right now. Meanwhile there's plenty happening up the road as well. James Logsdon increasing pressure on Milan Harris as we jump on board here with the Rockefeller Racing Gold driver as he makes his way into Sheen once again, and Logsdon goes deep, carries too much speed, and Harris will come on through. He'll take the place off of Logsdon, who has to try and recover the car, and that's what we were saying earlier. When you race this close at Brands Hatch, somebody's going to make an error, and it's error-fueled racing here which makes the difference as Harris right now rolls his way off the clearways and onto the start-finish straight as he powers his way on through. 5 minutes of this race complete, and let's give you a recap of that top 10. And we see here, here's your race leader, the Pro-Am leader as well, of Ilya Speaker from Rockefeller Racing Gold. 9/10 advantage to Pro leader Peter Lowe for Bear Pope 0. The Australian driver here doing well to hold on to that second place at a John Curran P3 that you have behind him in the Rockefeller Racing Gold machine. Where's Mika Hendricks for Alpha Touring Change P4, ahead of Milan Harris P5, and it's James Logsdon P6, Jordan Butler P7, Logan McKenzie at P8 for Alpha Touring Change Gold, and it's John Lowes on the second place Crown driver P9, and Samuel Bernardi, your AM leader P10, with Festeres behind Avon Dorsey P11. But as they make the way in towards Surtees Corner, we've got further drama down the field of Kenan Manning is into the wall there. That's at Druids Bend, and I believe he may have been a bit of an altercation with what was, unless I'm very much mistaken, Tim Chong, albeit alternatively. They both come together at the same time, albeit different places on the lab. We've all said Lucky Chop and Keith Wilfred both in an instance of their own, and I believe they've both been towed to the pits as well. So it's going to be a race of attrition here, and keep in mind our drivers have not even done a third of this race so far and are already starting to find themselves struggling to a degree in terms of keeping the car on circuit, and boy, it's very easy to make a mistake here. But meanwhile, as we look from where it's Kevin Manning for Votan Clan up to a driver a bit further up the order in the form of Mark Senegal, and we can see here P19, the Sunday GT Turtles driver under pressure from Witchuk, who's on his inside there going into Shane, and Mark Senegal in the end, he snaps the car, snap understeer as he made his way into the corner. As he does so, into the gravel, he gradually brings it back on, and well right now, oh my good lord, and there's a major shunt there between, I believe that might have been Nick Yakubov and Sammy Hendricks, unless I'm mistaken. That was, or I'm not 100% sure that was Hendricks. I know James Kingsbury is involved there, and I think it was Yakubov being given the shunt by what was Kingsbury there, and the two of them coming together, they both survive it, and that was under braking into turn number 8, and I think perhaps a misanticipation in terms of the concertina effect, as we did have 5 or 6 cars there all under heavy braking into Sterling's Bend, but thankfully Yakubov and Kingsbury both able to survive that, although I wonder how much damage has been done to their respective cars and whether that will make them a bit more difficult to drive over the remainder of the race. Gut feeling says yes, and I think we'll see that proven to us on the picture shortly, as Kingsbury going very deep into Druids Bend, and I think right now just trying to ascertain where the car's gone after that contact. But meanwhile, as we look from them back up to John Kroom, and Kroom here in the Rockefeller Racing Gold machine, under pressure now from Mika Hendricks, and Hendricks on his at 6. They make the way out the corner. We've also got their Dominic Ford, who's trying to steer out the way on the outside, going in at 2 clearways. They make the way through the right under turn number 9, and Kroom here will gain a little bit of a tow over the back of Ford. He'll be grateful for this. Should give him a bit more speed in which to charge into Paddock Hill Bend, and that speed will keep him safe from Hendricks for the time being, as Ford just backed off there on the inside, respecting the blue flags. And as they come down through turn number 1, all these drivers together right now, going the way up towards turn number 2, onto the brakes they go, and Hendricks and Harris all in the queue here behind the Rockefeller Racing Gold driver. As we see a car going round in the rear pictures, that is Ford who's made a mistake. Dominic Ford having a spin coming out of Druids Bend, and we're able to get the car back on circuit rather rapidly indeed. But meanwhile, looking a bit further back, this is Dos Viez as he chases down Jake Gertson for P15 overall. And right now, Dos Viez looking for that move, and then he'll go hunting after what will be Jay Davies, who's only 7/10 up the road from these two. So therefore, there's plenty of opportunities here to try and go for another move later in this race. Indeed, I think right now all the drivers will be cognizant of the fact that in the remaining 15 minutes of the race, when we do get to the halfway point, we'll start to see tyre degradation become a key theme here as well. We haven't got that hot set of conditions today, and to give you an idea of the weather our drivers are experiencing, you can see it on the right hand side of your screen there. We do have an ambient temperature of 26 degrees centigrade, 31 degrees centigrade track temperature, so it's actually a relatively mild track. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, so therefore our drivers won't be experiencing extremely high tyre degradation. But this circuit been a lot of load onto the left hand side tyres, and Tobias, we're going a bit deep there, as meanwhile a lock up for Jake Gertson behind Jay Davis as they make the way through turn number 8, and it's so easy to lock up in these battles when you're running so close to one another. driver, and that, I think, for the American driver is something he needs to be very worried about. In fact, he won't want to keep locking up the car, as otherwise he will start to lose a lot more performance on his front tyres, and then the car starts to really struggle late on in the race, particularly with those tighter corners such as turns 2 and 4. As he makes his way through paddock hill bend, you can see the overspeed he's carrying and also the dirty unsettling the front end of the car, causing some understeer. The reverse good racing driver just trying to find a way to put a dent into that advantage that Davis has over him, as meanwhile we look from them to a bit further down the hill. This is Jesse Jameson Jr. in the 2-3-1 for Votan Clan as he makes his way through paddock hill bend. He's got Jason Landry behind, who's on a recovery drive. Landry looking up the inside here into Druid. Jameson Jr. is going to leave the door open. I think expecting the number 5 Sunday GT Turtles car to come on through, and he does exactly that as they make their way down in towards turn number 3. And as they make the way around, we say hello to Logan at McKinsey there in the YouTube chat. Says he's really impressed with how everyone is keeping their monstrous cars on circuit, and indeed testament to the skills of our drivers here. We have had a few scrapes, bangs and knocks, but at the same time still to have so many still running after the start of this race with this Radical no easy machine, and they all knew that getting into the car this season, and every one of our drivers here trying to tame the British beast as they make their way on around this British circuit, but as they roar or throw. Meanwhile now Landry looking for another move here, looking up the inside. Mark Senegal goes to the move versus his Sunday GT Turtles counterpart and gets the move done there as they make the way on through it, and Senegal in fact loses out to Jameson Jr. as well, so a bit of a surprise there between the two of them as they make their way down towards turn number 8 into left-hander they go, and Landry gains car off the road. That's Dominic Ford who rejoins, albeit stays off the road to give space to everybody who's coming on through on the lead lap. But as we look to Tim Chong, the slipstream Slavs, makes his way out to turn number 8, and down the back straight he goes in the pursuit of James Kingsbury. Well, Kingsbury here now back up to speed, I think feeling a bit more comfortable in the car after that shunt earlier on, and now making his way up towards turn number 1. We'll make the way towards the braking zone very shortly here, and Chong on a mission to try and get a bit closer. 3.5 tenths is the gap. I think right now he's just trying to tease out an error from Kingsbury, and this gap is going to stay stationary for the time being as they roll the way of the brakes here at Druids Bend. But coming on down and around, you can see how close he started to get here as we ride on board with the 222 driver from Canada, and will Kingsbury there going a bit wide. He's got to be careful going too wide coming out of turn number 3, as that will be a track limit infringement, and tries to gain time there the more they run wide, and Chong gets the better apex there at 30's Bend. Kingsbury goes a bit deep, and now this will be an opportunity for Chong. He'll be within 2 tenths as they come off of the kink, and on to building shot they go. Building up the speed here in X is 147 miles an hour for Chong in the toe. Gets very close, but he can't quite get close enough. But again, Kingsbury there falling off of the apex curve at turn number 5 at Hawthorns, and this is where you've got to really be relentless and staying close. That's the fight with the oversteer there coming off of the curve, going on through Westfield Bend and just dropping that rear right tyre off of the curve, and it goes to show how the car quickly becoming unsettled as they make their way in towards turn number 10. Right now, difference in lines there you can see right now for Kingsbury feeling a bit unsettled in this battle, and they're trying to take central lines and do a bit of defence. Meanwhile, Chong taking a much more natural racing line, and turning slightly early to offset the dirty air, and as they make their way out of the corner, no change between them. Meanwhile, up the road, this is a battle for what is their P4 in the Pro Class, in fact overall I should say P3 in the Pro Class, and that's Hendricks at the inside of Milan Harris defending as they make the way on around Hawthorns into Westfield. But right now the AlphaTauri Challenge Gold driver is being peeled away from John Kroom and not being given an opportunity to chase after him. I think this goes to show that Harris right now in the ascendancy here as they come up through Sterling's Bend, and Kroom just being allowed to go hunting after Peter Lowe. As they make their way in towards turn number 9, well, these drivers right now start to head towards that halfway point of the race, and we'll be gauging just how the tyres and the car feels as a whole. Meanwhile, Chong versus Kingsbury, well, Chong gets the move done in the end, coming out to 30's Bend. I think there might have been an error for what was Kingsbury, perhaps gone a little bit deep there at the left-hander at turn number 4, and Chong gained another place for Slipstream Slavs, and right now his next tyre will be Billman DaCosta, who's 1 second up the road. Speaking of whom, the Bearpoke Zero driver still chasing down Glenn Bratton in the battle for P7 in the AM class, P24 overall, and as they make their way through turn number 7, they're going on through Sheen, and now it's turning to 8. Nothing between these two at the moment. It looks like they gap quite stationary, but Chong by comparison is getting very close. Already 4 tenths is the gap, and well, that's going to be a gap that's going to come down even faster still as they make their way towards the end of this lap onto the next one. And put you in perspective, well, on a clear lap, Pillman DaCosta is on average 1 second slower than Chong, so you would imagine that Chong's going to be there to try and look for a move in the next couple of laps and try to force his way into that P8 position in the AM class. But will he be able to? Keep an eye on DaCosta, no strangers being able to defend well as they make make the way into Druids. Ben goes a bit deep there and well misses the mark, and as a result Tron comes on through. Kingsbury now tries to also sneak his way in the inside to the outside, and DaCosta there backs off completely and lets them go. I think recognises his mistake, and 9 is only going to make it worse by battling on the outside into a downhill off Camber corner at Graham Hill Bend. But meanwhile, as we look from them to Mike Young under pressure for reverse grid racing from Charles Horsey, as Horsey getting closer and closer as they make the way in towards clearways and into the braking zone they go. We ride aboard and look back for the rear of reverse grid racing's 125 machine, and right now Horsey only 2.5 tenths off as they charge their way up towards turn number 1. And we're getting ready to go into the braking zone as Hendricks versus Harris in P4. They continue to try and battle for the position. We'll come to them very shortly, but meanwhile Young goes a little wide. Their car off. That's Jay Gertz in the rear of your picture. Will be a bit of pixel, but meanwhile it's a late break for Mike Young. He misses break by Charles Horsey. Comes on through. Pressure wins, and now up to P12 there for Horsey. Meanwhile, we do look from them back to Mika Hendricks versus Milan Harris, and as they make the way under the bridge and up towards turn at number 5 at Hawthorne's corner, well, Harris has time and time again threatened, but he's not been able to quite finish the move as they make the way out to turn number 5 in towards 6, halfway point of the race now in reach. And as we look to the blimp camera here, looking at them going underneath the Goodyear blimp as they make the way in towards turn number 7 going into the sheet curve. But this gives you a perspective of how narrow this circuit is. Indeed, you could fit 3 of these Radical machines side by side, but would you want to is the big question. And Wasabi right now would be saying yes, we'd love to see a 3 wide, but it will be tantamount to disaster if anyone's out of line. A bit of contact there between Hendricks and Harris. Harris coming in very hot, but that shows you that Harris is just so much more comfortable under braking in general to get the car stopped. Will be having to use his rival there to help stop the car, and as they make the way in towards turn 1, car coming out of the pits, that's Nick Yakubov there, who's a lap down now after repair work on the car. Harris very close, with 1.5 tenths as they head into the braking zone. He still can't quite find it as Speedwell James Logsdon immediately behind, now just watching and waiting in the wings to see if he can get involved in this battle as they come down in towards turn number 3. As they go through Hendricks, well, the gap now back up to 4 tenths there, and Harris having to try and find another way in as they make the way through Surtees Bend. And notice how Hendricks having to go a bit tight to the apex, not confident in how deep he can go into the corner by comparison with Harris, who just seems to be able to take a 10.5 there out the corner, and now making the way up towards Hawthorne's Bend. That's where the gap's coming down. Harris is an absolute speed demon at the Surtees corner by comparison with Hendricks, and that's where all the lap time is being made or lost, is in the trail braking zones where Harris just has so much more confidence in the car. As around goes Hendricks, they lose the car coming out Westfield Bend, catch the car perfectly, and well, I can definitely say that is a 360-degree spin that was incredibly well controlled. And well, Hendricks right now bringing it back together for AlphaTauri change gold, but he won't be too pleased about the fact he's lost places. What he will be pleased about is the fact, I think even his team principal on the video radio saying, well, it's not what we wanted, but still brilliant car control, because the 73 driver there could have been in disaster, but in the end he's able to deliver a perfect spin and bring it back up to speed. But as they make the way onwards towards turn number 1, his target now will be Jordan Butler, 6 tenths up the road with Logan McKinsey 6 seconds behind by comparison. And as they make their way through, here's the perspective of McKinsey, and that's the gap you can see as a result. But meanwhile, as he makes his way onto what for him is now lap number 14, we take a look further down the order to Jermaine Warren, who's trying to pick and choose his way past drivers here for middle of the pack racing. And while he's tucked in behind currently Mark Senegal, as Senegal there defending, albeit as they make the way to Westfield Bend. Warren thinking about looking for the move, and he can't quite get it done as they make the way out of what is turn number 6 and up towards 7 they go. And well, Warren just having to wait in the wings, and this is proving very costly for the 113 driver in the fact I think he's got the pace, but he just hasn't got the positioning to try and make a move as he comes out turn number 8 out. Sterling's incredibly close there, made to look around the outside versus Senegal going into the braking zone, but look at Senegal, he just put the car on the inside in the centre of the road and say, what are you going to do? And in the end, it's going to be contact between the two of them, and Jermaine Warren, I don't think expected to make that contact, but he's made his way on through it, and Senegal's car now has some rear suspension damage, and will Warren have damage as well? That's the question. I suspect he will have a bit of aero damage on the front, depending on where the impact point was, but Warren up into P28, albeit unconventionally, and well, Mark Senegal won't be too pleased with that. But as they make the way on around, meanwhile we look back to Kevin Manning here, making his way on through the corner, and with the Photon Clang driver right now in P30, and definitely a contrast to how this race started. In fact, started from pole in the AM class, and right now trying to nurse the car to the finish, but still hanging on in it to win it, as they say. And we look from him all the the way back up to Peter Lowe. And well, here is your pro leader right now, as we just see your Pro-Am overall leader, Villiers Speaker, making his way on through. And with the Australian Peter Lowe now under increasing pressure for John Croom. And when we saw this, to be fair, at what was Circuit Zolder last week, Peter Lowe was the fastest driver of everybody in the first half of the race. But as soon as we got to around the 20-minute mark, it seemed as though the number 11 driver started to struggle a little bit with regards to the pace of the car. And I think we're seeing that again today. He has a lot of pace in the first half of the race, but I think it's a burst of pace. It's not something he can necessarily maintain. He'll try and prove us wrong here, and well, we'd love to see if he can hold on to this win in the pro class, because it would be his first class win of the season, as he makes his way in towards turn number 8. And right now, John Croom, I think, having to tiptoe closer and closer, but at the same time, be mindful of the fact he can't become too absorbed in following the car in front, almost hypnotised by it, as that's when the mistakes occur. And when you do have what is a 2-3 on the way in terms of the pro podium right now for Rockefeller Racing Gold, with Croom ahead of teammate Harris, well, those points could be absolutely huge if the two drivers come on home, even in these positions. They'd lose out in terms of not finishing as winner in terms of 1-2 in the pro class, but the points could be worth a lot in terms of their championship aspirations. But as they make their way into Druids Bend, we've still got 10 minutes to go plus the final lap, so we're not going to get ahead of ourselves here and say it's all over yet. Indeed, anything could happen, and we've seen that time and time again this season already, only 2.5 rounds in. But meanwhile, we look back to Mika Hendricks. Trying to put some pressure on Jordan Butler there, as Butler having to defend, goes round the outside as Butler in defence, but Hendricks on the inside. Now side by side they go into Surtees. Going to be about who's going to be the latest of the late breakers, and when then Hendricks gets ahead, and Butler just slightly outstepping his mark, but now in the tow, and he will gain some speed here, but it's not going to be enough from Butler, as it's going to be Mika Hendricks who holds on here and takes the place back after his spin, going on through Dingle Dell, only a couple of laps to go. But look at Butler, he's right there, both of them having snap oversteer moments. As they come down, well, Butler rejoins first, gets the inside into Westfield Bend, but now as they come through turn number 6, in towards 7, via Dingle-Dell up into Sheen. Butler on the inside, Hendricks on the outside. Hendricks has to let it go, puts two wheels onto the grass, rejoins gradually, but he loses the place that he only tried to cover only moments ago, and in the end, Butler doing very well to put the pressure on, but both drivers there having a bit of a rally cross moment, but it was Butler had the better control as he returned, and that's how he got the move done. And Hendricks right now, no, he's got to try and go again. Meanwhile, Joel Crew battling with Milan Harris, and right now having to try and hold off his teammate here. His fastest lap of the race, a 17.801, and one absolutely sensational lap from Milan Harris, almost a 10th faster than the previous best lap was set by James Logsdon, 17.87. And right now, well, Harris eager to try and take that spot as there's a car in the way, and it's disaster for Rockefeller Racing Gold as Kroon there loses the car, and in it his teammate goes to the side of him, settling Kroon back on the right course. But meanwhile, Milan Harris drops down the order, and well, the traffic they came up behind, I believe it was Sammy Hendricks, who had a bit of a moment himself coming through turn number 3, so nothing he could do about that one. But in the end, John Kroon loses out, and now James Logsdon immediately there ready to pounce, but can he find a way to pounce as we jump aboard with the pro driver? More traffic ahead. Mark Senegal down the right of your picture steps out the way under blue flag, so as they make the way through turn at number 6, nose to tail they go there as Kroon goes a little bit wide. James Logsdon looks to move on the inside here, he can't quite find it as he has to back off, and as they make the way through Sheen and in towards Sterling's, we're right now staying extremely close. Through the left hander they go, and onwards towards Clearways, and Logsdon here will have to try and pin Kroon to the inside and force him to have to really suffer a line in that inside line as they make the way through. But as they come on through turn number 9, right now Logsdon able to find his way on through, and it is going to be a P3 for Logsdon at this time unless Kroon can find a way back of it. It's a nice move from James Logsdon, gets it done, and now onwards to his next target, which will be Peter Lowe for the win in the pro class. And Peter Lowe is 3.4 seconds up the road and not looking to slow down any time soon. But looking from them to a battle for P4 in the Pro-Am class, or P14 overall, it's Mike Young for Reverse Grid Racing versus what is there, Charles Halsey, and Halsey right now staying within 3/10. They make the way on to another lap. 23 minutes complete by the time they clear Paddock Hill Bend, and up towards Druids they go. And well, with the 7 minutes remaining, that's going to translate somewhere into the region of another 5 to 6 laps, including the one they're on to. And as they come on down through Druids Bend right now, Young here definitely under increasing pressure as we ride aboard and look back from the rear of the 125 driver. Flame spitting out the rear exhaust pipes there as they make their way in towards turn number 4 shortly. And which of these two will be the ones to find a way through? Keep in mind they've got Jay Davis only 4 tenths up the road. And Jay Davis battling for P13 with them overall, and there's more points to be gained from these drivers. And like you say, that David Dorsey in the Eurotrip Chat, close battles everywhere. Indeed, absolutely fantastic to see as they make the way through the right-hander of Hawthorne's, charging away up towards turn number 6 right now. And we'll obviously having to back off for a degree of a moment as they come down through Dingledale. No way through it this time, it would seem, but as they make the way into Sheen Curve, well, everyone at line astern in this battle, and now it's going to come down to who makes the first mistake. And we also do have Dustin Dosviers making his way in behind here as they cover through turn at number 8. As they charge the way up towards the next corner. Meanwhile, we look from them to Avon Dorsey. Meanwhile, we've got Samuel Bernardi, the AM leader, closed up behind. And Avon Dorsey, to be fair, P3 in the Pram class. So he'll be very happy with this result as it all comes together. But that's the big question. Will it end this way? As meanwhile, Jake Gertson looks up the inside of Samuel Bernardi and going all in there. The reverse good racing driver trying to adventure the move. It's going to be a smart move, and he gets the place as the pro driver. P11 taken from Bernardi. Meanwhile, further behind, Charles Hosey has found his way past Mike Young. And I believe there was a mistake from Young into what was Paddock Hill Bend. And obviously having to defend now as he's found his way past Jay Davis as well in the run down to the braking zone. But the Rockefeller Racing drivers are exchanging places. And, well, Hosey will try and break away now before Young can find his way past Davies. And I wonder if Davies here might act as a bit of a rear gunner for a brief moment as they power their way on down the stretch up towards Hawthorne's corner. You can see Young incredibly close here as they head on in. He's going to peel out to the inside here, try and fight Davies as Davies closes the door shut, taking that outside line, the more natural racing line. And Young went for it there, but it wasn't enough as they make the way on down through turn number 6 in towards 7. And charging away on around here into the drop and the rise. All behind, we do have Dosviers closed up, and Jay DeVries only 2 seconds off in this battle now. So all the field started to Constantino together behind what is Charles Halsey, and all looking for an opportunity to get involved. And will meanwhile Avon Dorsey up towards turn number 9 on the exit here. The Rockefeller Racing green driver under pressure from what is that, I do believe that's Jake Kurtz, looks up the inside, and the pro driver comes up through for reverse grid racing pink as he makes his way up towards turn number 2 and in towards the braking zone. They go for Druids, and right now Gertson just trying to hurry his way past as being, well, one pro looking for a move here is Big Hendricks. Looks down the outside. I think there was a bit of netco contact there between Milan Harris and Hendricks. Both drivers seem to lose control of their cars for a brief moment. Hendricks having to do corrective steering as the car almost went around. Harris has survived it, but Mika Hendricks having bad luck at today is no doubt about it. But again, very good at catching the car and keeping that car well and truly alive. But now he's got to find his way past Jordan Butler once again, and well, he's done it once, but having to do it twice, and Butler will be aware of where Hendricks is stronger than him and ready to defend as well as he can. As they coming up towards what is turn at number 7, we look to Jermaine Warren as he looks at the move on the inside here versus what is David Turner. He moves on to P24, goes a bit deep in the middle of the pack there, bit of Paddock Hill Bend, and has to catch the car before it comes wayward and potentially wipes the pair of them out, and Turn regains the place. But Warren showing great car control there and also awareness of where Turn would be on the drop of the fact he can't stop the car once he drops through Paddock Hill Bend. You have to just try and get the car to go to the gravel if it snaps loose. Alternatively, you've got to try and straighten the steering and get it a park up on the curb, and drivers behind just come charging down to instant. They've got no way of died until a yellow flag is waved. Was they make the way out on the roof through 30's corner, drama averted, and well, from them we look back to Charles Horsey, who has got a whole pack of cars behind him now. Indeed, a very popular man today, the 100 driver Rockefeller Racing Green, and as they come down into Paddock Hill Bend through the right hander they go. We had an instant for Milan Harris further up the road. He's dropped out of what is P5 overall. I believe it may be a spin for Milan Harris going on through what was 30's corner, and that's not a welcome moment there for Harris whatsoever. We stay here with Charles Horsey for Rockefeller Racing Green as Milan Harris has had to be towed to the pits after what has been his incident. We're not quite sure what's happened to the car, but it's a major bit of damage, as otherwise the car would not be towed. And right now Charles Horsey doing very well, keeping Davies Young and also Dosviers behind him as they head onwards towards Hawthorne's, and this will be only 3 laps in the end now as time continues to trickle on down, and will Horsey be closed up in the run in towards Hawthorne's corner. But you can see that it's not long enough for a run for Davies to get close enough to consider making the move. He can get within range in order to think about trying to threaten a move or trying to psych his rival into thinking the move's coming, but he's not going to be able to do one from that far back unless he goes for a full send. But then again, that's going to be multiple first class stamps because of the distance. As they make the way in towards turn number 8, nose to tail, they roar their way almost towards the end of this lap. 2 minutes left on the clock here at Horsey 9 right now. He's just got to dig in and defend as much as he can. I think chasing down Bernardi, who is 5.5 seconds up the road, is going to be a bit of pipe dream at this point as Horsey almost loses it coming out of the final corner there, puts a wheel wide, the rear left tyre spinning up on the grass, but catches it in time. But Davies is going to look around the outside. It's hard to make a past the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. You grab the nose ahead before you go into the braking zone, and Will Davies experiencing exactly what happens when you carry too much speed on that outside line. He has to completely back up the inside goes Mike Young. Young comes through, and now Viez looking for the move. I can't quite find it. There's a bit of oversteer there, and does Viez off the circuit, but avoids the barrier. But he will lose a place to Jay DeVries. He returns. He'll also lose a place there to Adam J. Ballard, who goes on through to move up into P16, who runs wide himself, and will both tries there in a nightmare moment as Ballard having to slow down. So Dos Viez gains the place back, and well, what an unexpected fortune for Ballard in the fact that 1 point gain in the next minute and losing, and Dos Viez the opposite. But as they make the way through, meanwhile, Horsey going deep there, coming on through. Hofler's got, he's got on the inside of him, Mike Young. The two rivals there, I should say, making the way in towards turn number 6, and Young will get the move done for P4 in the prime class there as they make the way up the hill towards Sheen Curve, and now Davies looking for the move on Horsey, and I think Horsey might be starting to fall off the metaphorical cliff here in terms of his tyre life. It just doesn't seem to be there anymore as he gets ready to go on to the next lap. Speaking of which, already on to what will be, we believe, the final lap of the race today. We may have one more depending on how quickly he gets around to the finish line. Ilya Speaker of Rockefeller Racing Gold, 1 second ahead of Peter Lowe, and Lowe right now is closing little by little. It's 3/10 a lap he's been closing. When Speaker had an advantage of 3 seconds to play with when Lowe started to gain, well, you can do the mathematics, it's not been enough time, and Speaker right now comfortably ahead, and this will be the final lap. We've only 20 seconds left on the clock. Lowe's throwing everything at this to try and catch up, but I don't think we're going to see enough from the Australian here. I think we might be seeing the first non-pro win of the season coming our way with only what is 3-2-1, and that will be time. 30 minutes on the clock there, so come at the end of this lap, it will be the checker flag. Ilya Speaker right now making his way in towards the final corner, and it's been a dominant drive, qualifying so put it on pole, and as he makes way out of the final corner, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Rockefeller Racing Gold driver Ilya Speaker will take the overall win on the prime win with it today, and a pro winner Peter Lowe P2, and then it will be John Croom who rounds off the overall podium there for Rockefeller Racing Gold P3, and a James Logsdon P4, and then Jordan Butler P5, holding on Mika Hendricks to the line. Hendricks had a McKinsey in the battle for P6, P7, and it'll be Jake Gertson at P8 here as he comes to the line for reverse grid racing. Behind him will be the run-up prime driver Avon Dorsey P9, and your AM winner there, Samuel Bernardi, back on the top step of the AM class for Rockefeller Racing Red, P10 overall. Vesta P11, John Lowes on ahead of Charles Horsey, with Mike Young there just behind, and then Jay Davies, Jay DeVries P14, P15, Dustin Torres P16 there as he makes way across the line. Jason Angie P13, Alan Ballard P18, and then we look to Dan Victrick here as he makes his way out of the final corner, and as he heads towards the timeline, the Canadian finisher P19, but for Victor it is also a P4 in the AM class, so he'll be pleased with that one, there's no doubt about it. We still have a bit more battling to go here as Tim Chong for Slipstream Sloths makes his way to the timeline. Coming out of the final corner, well, for the Canadian driver here, he does have a 1 second advantage over Kingsbury. It will be enough. James Kingsbury just behind him, but Tim Chong finishes the AM top 5. Kingsbury P21 behind him. Jesse Jefferson Jr. P22, then Jermaine Warren P23, and David Turn completed all of your lead lap finishes P24 when all is said and done. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a race from start to finish, and many made it look as though the car was a handful, but one driver today who absolutely kept his cool and looked at every point to have his composure fully in check. This man, Ilya Speaker of Rockefeller Racing Gold, and well, he may be a prime driver, but today was definitely a professional performance. And I tell you one thing, all the pros will be thinking, how on earth did he just manage to pull that off? And will Peter Lowe behind, credit where it's due. Pro win, his first pro win of the season, and the Bear Pope Zero driver absolutely cool, calm and collected, and proving us wrong. And when we said earlier that he only had the pace in the first half of the race and we'd see him drop off, he didn't drop off today. His pace rose in the final half of the race, and well, definitely proving a point there, which is he's here to take wins just as much as anybody else. But as they all make their way into the pit lane, Mike Young coming on in as well, and well, he'll be one of the last to come into the pit lane when everyone calls on down that, and that's a perfect time for us to take you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. So after a thrilling 30 minutes of racing at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom for round 3 of the 2023 Middle of the Pack Racing League Radical Eurotrip Championship, Ilya Speaker taking the overall and prime win there for Rockefeller Racing Gold by 8 tenths over Peter Lowe for Bear Pope Zero. the Bear Pope Zero driver, your pro winner P2, ahead of John Croom, the pro run-up for Rockefeller Racing Gold, and the third place finisher on the overall podium. And that completes our overall podium of Speaker, Low and Groom, with James Logsdon missing out on the overall podium P4, but the Bear Pope driver picking up another pro podium and completes the pro podium of Low, Croom and Logsdon. Jordan Butler, P5 for DNA Motorsports, ahead of the AlphaTauri Challenge Gold pair of Mika Hendricks and Logan McKenzie, both doing very well to finish P6, P7, and credit where it's due to Mika Hendricks for catching the car multiple times, including a sensational 360 spin, made his way out of Westfield Bend down into Dingledale, and that I think will be one that he'll remember for quite some time. We indeed here in the commentary booth will do so. And then Jake Gertzen, P8 there for Reverse Good Racing, head of Avon Dorsey, P9 net, runner up in the Prime class for Rockefeller Racing Green, head of Samuel Bernardi in the AM class there, your class winner for Rockefeller Racing at red, and what a great drive there for Bernardi to be back on top form, head of John Lauzon at P11, best the rest there for AlphaTauri Challenge Silver. Charles Horsey at P12 just missed out on the prime podium that was comprised of Speaker, Dorsey and Lauzon, but still will take a P4 in class for Rockefeller Racing Green, and know that he did everything right to hold off Mike Young with a Reverse Good Racing drive P13. Jay Davies, the run-up AM driver there for what is Rockefeller Racing Red P14, head of Jay DeVries at P15, and then Dustin Dos Villas P16, and taking his first AM podium of the season for Flavor Station Racing, and completing the AM podium of Bernardi, Davies and Dos Villas. We then can see Jason Landry at P17, that early spin at the start of the race cost him very dear, and I think he would have been hoping for a safety car at the start of the race, but wasn't to be. We've had no safety car today, and therefore recovered a P17, a great recovery drive there from the number 5 drive for Sunday GT Turtles, and the top 20 being completed by Adam J. Ballard, Dan Vitchuk and Tim Chong, who was 20th. Then going to P21, James Kingsbury for Flavor Station Racing, head of Jesse Jameson Jr., with Jermaine Warren and David Turn completing at your top 24, and with it all the drives have finished on the lead lap as classified. And then at P25 there for Glenn Bratt of the Privateer, ahead of the creation of Bear Pope's Sammy Hendricks, P26, who was a lap down, as well as Milan Harris. Mark Senegal, P28, ahead of what was Nick Yakubov, P29. Nick Bader, 2 laps down at P30, the Privateer, ahead of Billman DaCosta and Roger Ganesh. And then 4 laps down, Kevin Manning for Photon Clan. And then we come on to our retirees from this race, ladies and gents, with 22 laps turned, with that 23 laps turned, we should say. In the end, these drivers will be classified as non-finishers. They did not complete over half the race distance, and in fact were not within 5 laps of the race winner. And we can see there Dominic Ford, Lucky Chop, Keith Wilfred and Franz Washing all having a difficult day today. Now coming on to the individual class finishing positions, starting with the pro class. We can see Peter Lowe taking that win for Bear Pope Zero by 5.4 seconds over John Croom, the Rockefeller Racing Gold driver, holding on with James Logsdon close, only a 10th off at the finish. And that was your podium, ahead of Jordan Butler and Mika Hendricks, who completed the top 5. Then Logan McKenzie, P6, Jake Gertzen, P7, Jason Landry, Milan Harris, all finishing there, P7 through to P9, and Milan Harris a lap down. And then the sole retiree, having retired on the open lap of the race, AlphaTauri Challenge Silver's Franz Washing, P10. We'll then come on to the Prime class. And as we can see here, Ilya Speaker, the winner in the end in the Prime class by 25 seconds almost for Rockefeller Racing Gold over sister team driver Avon Dorsey. And well, that is a statement and a half, it must be said, from Ilya Speaker. And then Dorsey, the runner-up ahead of AlphaTauri Challenge Silver's John Lauzon. So Rockefeller Racing at 1-2 today. Well, that's exactly the way they'll like it. And John Lauzon flying the flag high for AlphaTauri Challenge Silver, and indeed carrying on that podium trend. We then see Charles Horsey at P4 for Rockefeller Racing Green, hold off Mike Young for Reverse Good Racing, with Young's teammate Jay DeVries just behind, and then Adam J. Ballard, Jermaine Warren and Sammy Hendricks all finishers there through what was P7 through to P9. Hendricks a lap down in the end, and then the sole retiree of Dominique Ford for Photon Clan, albeit great credit to Ford for carrying on as best he could, but in the end I think the damage picked up in the car was too much to carry on. And then comes the AM class, last but not least. And as we can see here, Samuel Bernardi, your winner by 8 seconds for Rockefeller Racing Red over teammate Jay Davis. So another 1-2 for Rockefeller Racing, and specifically for their team at Red today in the AM class. And then Dustin Dos Villas at P3 there for Flavor Station Racing, a further 6 seconds down. Dan Victor, P4, the Privateer, another solid result there for the Canadian, ahead of fellow countryman Slipstream Sloth's Tim Chong. And then James at Kingsbury just missing out on the top 5 by a single second, but 4 seconds clear of Jesse Jefferson Jr., with David Turn being the final lead lap finisher in the AM class class P8. P9, P10, Glenn Bratton and Mark Senegal, both a lap down. Then best of rest, P11, Nick Yakubov, with Nick Bader 2 laps down there, P12, ahead of Bilman DaCosta and Roger Ganesh. 4 laps down, Kevin Manning in P15, and then coming to our 2 retirees of Lucky Chop and Keith Wilfred, both retiring after lap number 2. But in fact, I do believe it was lap number 4. We'll correct ourselves there. But that concludes our recap of all the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, that brings to a close all of our racing here today at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And it does mean that it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid for a future Middle of the Pack Racing League series, or perhaps you want to put yourself on the reserve list for this series, or do you just want to know a bit more about what we do behind the scenes at Middle of the Pack Racing League, well, to find out all about that and plenty more, firstly, we do recommend you head to our official Discord, invite link available on the screen there, and indeed, we'd love to have you part of the extended community as we go from strength to strength over the course of 2023. Alternatively, if you don't want to be part of our Discord, perhaps you're a bit more of a social media person, then the best place to go to is our official Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Racing, and there you can find out all the latest updates on our leagues, ongoing and upcoming, and also find out a little bit more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League esports teams as they compete at official iRacing events. But now, ladies and gentlemen, attention will turn to the next round of racing, round number 4, to complete the Northern Cup, and it will be at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in Northamptonshire of the United Kingdom. 3 rounds of sprint racing have definitely been an absolute thriller, but what happens when we extend the race distance and turn it into a feature where there's no qualifying session? And we'll explain exactly how the grid will be set going into next week's round. All the racing will occur on what is Wednesday the 27th of September, but we're going to have a bit of a delayed broadcast, but we will bring it to you as if it were live on Saturday the 7th of October during the mid-season break week, so there's plenty to look forward to during the mid-season break, and who will be crowned our Northern Cup Champions of Europe. We'll find out then, but until then, we've been Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.